Carl King has only a single film review this week, and that feels like just the right amount. This week's film review is Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. Written and directed by Daniel Scheinert and Daniel Kwan. Musical score created by 3 different people, all members of a band called Sun Lux, or maybe pronounced San Lux. Anyway, it's a totally wild score, and I recommend giving it a listen on its own. It's very modern classical. Starring in this movie were Michelle Yeoh, Ke Huy Quan, Stephanie Hsu, James Hong, and Jamie Lee Curtis in quite an unusual role for her. Now, Everything, Everywhere, All at Once may have been named after the style of decorating the main character's home, because the first thing I noticed is, man, these people have a lot of stuff in their house piled to the ceiling, and it is stressing me out. Before watching it, I already felt skeptical because, hey, Carl King doesn't need to see any more time travel or multiple dimension stories. I feel like it's a kind of worn out gimmick right now. Feels like it's a complication that distracts from the people in the story. Then again, some viewers crave all that spectacle. Well, lots of people out there must be way into it. But in the filmmaker's defense, I read that they had actually been working on this film since like 2010, before all of that stuff was cool. And honestly, it takes forever to make a movie, and you never know what's going to be popular or not popular by the time a movie comes out. Anyway, we have a mother and daughter story here. There's this line of dialogue that says, "You pushed your daughter too hard until you broke her." So that's the central conflict. And there are other conflicts within the family played out through a lot of colorful, psychedelic noise on the screen. But at least if we are subjected to dimensional travel, the filmmakers came up with unusual rules to the science behind it. I mean, the method by which the characters jumped from world to world was definitely not what you would expect. There's also a heavy dose of non sequitur absurdist mythology. Because in the universe of this movie, food items and silly sexual stuff were given unusual significance. And in another context, I would have thought it was great. You know, maybe if it were a comic book or graphic novel, I would be way into it. Now, the movie focuses on mostly the same 4 people in the family, which is a plus. You know, the background characters were truly background characters rather than cluttering things up. Now, I'm not into martial arts myself, but that aspect was creative and well done. Now, once it gets going, this movie was almost wall-to-wall kung fu, which was too much for me. About 1/3 into the movie, it was like one fight after another, with not much interpersonal connective tissue. And I honestly liked the movie better when it was just the normal people doing laundry and taxes. Overall, the plot was just too much for me. I made a note about 2/3 of the way through that I've watched most of the movie, and I think the goal is for the mom to kill the daughter, or at least stop her somehow. I thought to myself, man, I really have no idea what is going on, but in a bad way. I found myself getting way too sleepy and said out loud, oh man, I've still got 30 minutes left. I'm really trying to get through it. But here's a plus, that lead actress, superb. And that is Michelle Yeoh. I mostly knew her as the evil lady from Star Trek, but that tells you how uneducated I am, really. But hey, I'm working on it. Now, this is another opportunity for me to point out my belief that just because I personally didn't enjoy a film, I can still think it was good. You know, we can separate these two things, right? I mean, we've got to be careful to not let our personal tastes cloud our judgment. So while I did think it was well done, this movie just didn't hook me. At least not until the final act, because right when I had given up, it pulled me in. At that point, the meaning of the movie hits hard. The message was powerful and necessary, and it is this, that we have to be happy with what we have to be happy with, as King Crimson once said. It sure was slow and agonizing to get there, but it was a solid payoff. If I were the editor, I would try to seriously chop down that middle third with all the craziness going on. Maybe the movie didn't need to be 2 hours and 19 minutes? I don't know. It felt like an indie film that was crossing over into big budget blockbuster territory. So I'm giving this one 3.5 out of 5 stars because it was better than average, but my average might not be the average.